Campbell finds a castle. Campbell the cat was glad to sit down and rest. He'd been walking for 3 days. He flopped down thankfully beside the river and cooled his aching paws. A man wearing a shabby tweed jacket and old Wellington boots was fishing.
"You're new around here,"
he remarked.
"Are you looking for somewhere to stay?"
Campbell nodded.
"You need another cat over at the castle."
He pointed across the fields.
"The last one left. All those mice were too much for him. Come along and I'll show you round."
Campbell was surprised. The man looked so shabby. "Do you work there?" His companion grinned.
"Yes, I do."
The castle was surrounded by a moat. "How will we get across?" Campbell asked.
"You'll see."
The man rang a huge brass bell which hung from a strong pole. There was a lot of creaking and grinding as a wooden drawbridge came slowly down.
"Keeps out unwelcome visitors,"
explained the man, striding across. Campbell ran to keep up with him. Over the courtyard and straight in at the front door went the fisherman, his boots still dripping.
"It's a draughty old place," he said.
Open-mouthed, Campbell stared round the big hall with its carved chairs and wooden chests. At the foot of the staircase stood a suit of armour. A door in the far corner opened, and a bent old servant hobbled across.
"Dinner will be served in half an hour, Your Grace."
Campbell turned to the fisherman in amazement. He did not look a bit like a duke.
"Very well, Pogson. Take these fish to the kitchen. We'll have 'em for breakfast. Now then, my lad."
He smiled at Campbell.
"You're welcome to stay, if you'll chase all the troublesome mice out of my castle."
Campbell hesitated. "I'll try." It was true, he tricked 52 mice into leaving a bakery, but chasing was different because he had flat feet. He could not run fast, and there was sure to be plenty of running to be done in a castle. The Duke bent to stroke him.
"Just do your best, but I warn you, they're a cunning bunch."
Pogson took the little cat to the kitchen to meet Cook, a fat, jolly woman who looked as if she tasted everything she made.
"You can sleep in that corner, my dear."
She pointed to a small basket lined with a blanket.
"It belonged to our last cat, but he left rather suddenly."
She and Pogson exchanged meaningful looks. Campbell was sure he could hear a mouse's laughter. The little cat was woken in the middle of the night by scuffling. He opened one eye and watched in amazement as mice appeared from everywhere. Under the pantry door, out of the big black oven, even from behind the kitchen clock. They met in the middle of the kitchen, whiskers twitching, tails waving, whispering and squeaking with excitement. Then another mouse appeared, squeezing under the back door. They all turned to greet him. When he saw the newcomer's big ears, Campbell groaned. He might have known he had not seen the last of Jiggs, the one mouse he had never managed to outwit. Swaggering across to the cat's basket, Jiggs grinned cheekily.
"I knew you'd turn up sooner or later. I've been here since yesterday."
Campbell pretended to ignore him, but in an odd way he was pleased to see Jiggs' familiar face. Still, the Duke had offered him a home, so he must try to get rid of all the mice, including Jiggs. Turning his back and pretending to be asleep, Campbell waited, thinking out a plan. When all was quiet once more, he crept across the kitchen, jumped on a stool, and hooked open the pantry door with his paw. His face brightened. Helping himself to a wedge of strong-smelling cheese, he hid it in his basket. All he had to do was wait. next morning, the postman arrived and propped his bike by the back door. "Come in and have some tea, Jem," called Cook. This was Campbell's chance. Slinking out with the cheese, he dropped it into the empty letter bag behind Jim's saddle. He had kept a few crumbs of cheese to scatter in the kitchen. So when Jim rode off, the mice streamed after him, noses twitching eagerly as they followed the delicious smell. After Jim had gone, old Pogson pulled up the drawbridge. Campbell smiled to himself. "I've done it." But when the laundry van called in the afternoon, Campbell was in for a shock. As the housekeeper opened the basket, she shrieked and jumped up into a chair. 15 mice of all shapes and sizes scrambled out of the basket. Campbell watched them in dismay.
You got too clever that time,
said Jiggs.
I knew they'd never keep up with that postman.
Grinning, Jiggs dodged out of Campbell's reach. At midnight, Campbell was woken by the grandfather clock in the hall, chiming twice as loudly as usual. The little cat pulled the blanket over his head to muffle the noise. But when the clock had chimed 12, it did not stop. On it went. 13, 14, 15. When it reached 34, the Duke came storming downstairs in his nightshirt. Grabbing a knobbly walking stick, he banged the clock in a fury. The door at the front flew open and the chimes stopped. But the clock began to tick twice as fast as it should. Old Pogson appeared, carrying a candle in one hand and a poker in the other.
"Send this idiotic clock away to be mended, Pogson, or we'll never get any peace," growled the Duke, stomping back upstairs to bed.
That gave Campbell his idea. If only he could lure the mice inside the clock before the men came to collect it. He crept into the pantry. Cook had been busy. Campbell's face brightened at the sight of tarts, cakes and sausage rolls. He laid a trail of crumbs across to the clock, then packed the inside with food. He had not long to wait. Following their noses, the mice soon appeared, gobbled up the crumbs, and jumped into the clock. Campbell slammed the door and heard it click. When the two men arrived for the clock, they heard strange noises inside.
"Got a bad one here, mate,"
said one. The other man shook his head gloomily.
"Even old Erasmus won't be able to sort out his clock."
When Cook found food missing from the pantry, she turned on Campbell.
"You thieving cat! I'll tell the Duke!"
she shouted, chasing him with a rolling pin. The little cat was terrified. Dodging this way and that, he reached the hall and took a flying leap straight into the suit of armour. The visor clanged shut behind him. The rattling and howling from inside the armour alarmed the cook. When the Duke came downstairs, she ran to him, still waving the rolling pin.
"We're haunted, Your Grace! There's a ghost inside the armour!"
The Duke lifted the visor, peered down, and lifted out a bruised and bedraggled cat. Campbell told the Duke what had happened. His Grace was much amused.
"So, I've sent old Erasmus a family of mice, as well as a crazy clock. Good for you, little cat. I knew you were smart, but I never thought you'd get rid of those plaguey mice so quickly. Give him some milk, Cook, at once."
Campbell finished the milk, cleaned his whiskers, and padded outside to curl up in the sunshine. And that night he slept with a peaceful smile on his face, knowing he was alone in the kitchen. But when he went out to greet Jim the postman next morning, a familiar face peered down at him from the letter bag.
"Hi!"
said Jiggs, jumping up.
"I'm back. Couldn't stand it with old Erasmus. Too many clocks. All that ticking and chiming, it kept me awake. Besides,
He grinned cheekily and skipped out of Campbell's reach.
I knew you'd miss me.